Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to the Feminist Book Club at the Open Book Festival. My name is Noma Tsheleza. I work at the book lounge and this is our third sitting of this book club. I see some familiar faces and I'm seeing new faces. So if it's your first time, welcome. If it's your second or third time, it's good to have you back. I have with me the incredible author of this amazing book called The Fragile Mental Health of Strong Women. Her name is Michelle Kekana, and I will give her the platform to introduce herself.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming through. I've been nervous all day. Like for the past 24 hours, I was just like, whose bright idea was this to allow me to have a session on my own? Who's going to come? I was like, Mervyn and Frankie need an adult here, because this cannot be a thing. But now that it's happening, it's inevitable. It just has to happen. I am a writer. Like, I'm a former teacher. I taught for 17 years at a Catholic school that I had gone to. So literally, I never left high school, which is tragic. But I'm a mother of 4 children, ranging in ages from 27 to 11. 2 boys and 2 girls. And I've always really loved words and literature. I mean, I think I just came from a Tsitsi Dangaremba talk, and I think good writers achieve immortality. Tsitsi is immortal, she'll live forever. Like 200 years from now, people will have access to her thoughts. So I think writing is awesome. Thank you for coming.
Brilliant. So a couple of things I want to get in the way before we start. This is a book club, so we make it very interactive. Everyone is open to state their opinion, ask a question. It really is a safe space. And I'm also going to ask everyone to respect other people when they're speaking, even if you don't agree with what someone is saying, just be mindful of that. And the book does have a lot of triggering content. So if you feel overwhelmed or you feel like you need a break, there are ushers in the room who'll be here to take care of you. If you need water, raise your hand. You can even come on stage. It's all okay. So for context, before we get started, this book has 3 stories. The Book of Hope, the Book of Ayanga, and the Book of Zetu. So we're going to get started with the Book of Ayanga, and I'm going to ask Michelle to read a little piece from page 76.
Page 76?
Yeah, the highlighted part.
Okay. Can I have your copy? Because
I think that is, yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Like, swap. Page 76, you said. I miss the baby I had pictured. That baby saw me as a source of comfort. In my head, the baby and I would spend time lovingly looking into each other's eyes, bonding. The placid baby of my dreams proves fictional. I am falling into a deep, disappointed despair. Lunga seems determined to cry himself to hysterics and then to sleep furtively, his little chest heaving from uncried sobs.
Okay, so this book, surprisingly, amongst all 3 stories, traumatized me the most. And I told Michelle that, like, I cried so much. I cried at work. I cried in Ubers. And she said to me, Noma, you're a wimp. And I was like,
oh, she is. I stand by that, she is.
I told you can't call me a wimp after traumatizing me. But this book stuck out the most to me because I'm not a mother, but I was deeply impacted by it. And it goes to show the importance of fiction for empathy, because you get to put yourself in situations that you haven't been in. And I was just fascinated by the concept of difficult babies, because everyone thinks I'm going to have a child and it's just going to be smooth and it's going to be fun and it will just happen naturally. I'm going to love my baby. But many mothers dislike their children. Like, it happens. Like, if you have a child because the child in the story just won't stop crying. The only time that they're not crying is when they're asleep, and the mother never catches a break. So I wanted, let's speak about that, about difficult babies and...
I think motherhood is the final stigma. Women are not allowed to express how difficult motherhood can be from the onset. No one takes into account that in becoming a mother, you lose yourself as a woman before. Suddenly, there is someone who supersedes all of your needs. No mother is, like society expects mothers to put all of their needs at the back burner for the goodness of the child from the jump. And like in meeting Ayanga, in creating Ayanga, I wanted to interrogate the difficulty parenting can be, especially for mothers. If you take into account the changing body, your changing physical body, the hormonal upheaval, the chaos that babies come with. You know, have you ever seen a mother packing to go to the shops to get something with the baby? She has to carry everything but the kitchen sink. Do you know what I mean? So, like, motherhood is a very, very difficult concept, and I think as society we still haven't grappled. And women who admit how difficult motherhood can be are often shamed. Like, no, we're told that motherhood is natural. And natural doesn't mean it is easy. I mean, hurricanes are natural. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily pleasant or easy to deal with. So I wanted to delve into motherhood when things don't turn out right, when their bond is not instantaneous, when the child cannot find comfort within the mother. Like, how does that do? Because, I mean, the ego gets involved, I would imagine. Like, if you give birth to this person, you've given them your all, you've let them inhabit your body for 9 months and whatever, and they come out, and for them, you're not a source of comfort. Like, you can still shush them, hold them, whatever it is, but they still are not, you can't grant them succor. So I think that that can be very difficult for women, especially in a world that expects you to just cope. And like, I've seen it with myself, having given birth 4 times, and with other women. As soon as people come to the hospital, your body has gone through this difficult change. Like, that almost killed. I think if men were the people who gave birth, they would get 4 years maternity leave. But because it is women, we're expected to snap back. Even when relatives, people who love you dearly, come to the hospital to check up on you after the birth of the child, it'll always send her the child. Let me at the baby. How's the baby? No one like checks on the mother, the fact that you've probably been sewn up after the birth of the child. So it's like, I think it was a conversation that I felt needed to be had.
So does anyone have something that they want to add onto that? Maybe your own experience with a difficult baby or motherhood resentment, because it is real topics, and the more we speak about it, the more we can find comfort and hope and healing, you know. Or if anyone wants to speak about the expectations of motherhood, anything. Yeah.
Hi there.
Hello.
I hope you're well. Thank you so much for organizing this and for having this space for people to engage on difficult topics like this. I wanted to ask, when it comes to motherhood, I am not a parent. And
Yes.
I'm trying to grapple with that choice as a young woman in 2025, especially since personally I think this is the best time to be a woman in like the history of ever.
Yes.
How do you deal with regret once you enter motherhood? I imagine there's a big transition from the person that you used to be to the person that you become. And there might be a misalignment in terms of how you envisioned your life without children or even with children.
Yes.
And, you know, regret is just a human experience, but specifically in that context of having to raise another human being, how do you grapple with that feeling?
Like, I imagine it would be like very difficult to grapple with regret once the child is here, because, I mean, what options do you have at hand? You can't send it back to the hospital, even though you have the receipt, like, they won't take it. They won't take the baby. I think we should open up more spaces where women can, like, express how difficult it can be. And I think that's where the choice of to have or not to have children is very important. But I feel like even though we've had choices since the 90s on whether to carry pregnancies to term, like because women are not mothers themselves, mothers like me are not upfront about how difficult it can be, like an uninformed choice is not a choice. I think it's like mothers will always talk about how rosy it all is and then post pictures of a sleeping, contented baby or whatever it is. And I think on social media, we use social media to just air out our dirty laundry. I feel like mothers should take little video clips at 2 a.m. where the infant is screaming so that you know what you're in for, so that you're not making a choice that's not informed. So, yeah.
Usher, there's someone there. There's a hand.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to stand so I can see you.
Yes.
And I think it's building on that. I'm also not a mother, but this book really and I was unemployed at the time, so you would think the Book of Hope would have killed me more than.
Yes.
But I think what was so tragic for me, I was just like, where are her friends? And I think just like as potential future mothers and mothers in general, you're not prepared. I think us as friends are also not prepared like how do you support the mother? And we do come and we rush in and we look at the baby and we want to hold the baby. But I think that was something in the book that was so potent for me because she kept on looking to her husband, but I was also like, where is her tribe?
Yes, where is her tribe? Exactly. Oh.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Gail, and I finished your book last night, and I just
Yes.
want to say thank you so much. I am a mother, and I'm happy to say that my son is alive and well, and he's 31 years old.
Yes.
But I related to the story, you right down to the cracked and bleeding nipples was kind of, it's the first time I've ever read an account of something close to my experience. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the isolation that's described, I think, is perhaps more, it's more awful than the trauma of the birth or the screaming baby. It's the
aloneness of the
aloneness,
woman.
and also the sense of this is your most important task in the world ever. And if you're a kind of person who's ever, who usually gets things right, who kind of does
Gets
things
on with it and
successfully,
copes.
to fail at this task is a very difficult thing to cope with. So thank you. I just want to say one other thing. I was reading it, and it went on and on, and on and on and on. And I thought, okay, it's enough now. It's enough now. This is too long. The
Yeah.
editor should have cut this by a third.
Yeah.
It's going on too long. Then
Yeah.
I realized, oh yeah, that's how it is.
That's exactly how it is.
It's relentless. When you can't take it anymore, it carries on.
And then when you find the 5 minutes in which to take a shower and the baby screams and
Exactly.
only your hair is wet, and you're not clean either. So it can be relentless. And what she was asking about the social isolation of women. And I think it's very un-African, but because of modernity and westernization, we have the nuclear family, right? When it's just the husband and the wife and the child, which was very unheard of in African societies. I'm Xhosa, and there's a period after birth that's called ubudlezane. It has a special name where you are sent back to your mother's house so that not only is the baby looked after, but you are looked after. And I think that's important. And it's in most communities, in Mediterranean communities and other communities, whatever it is, the tribe comes together at the birth of the child. It's not just a gift to their mother and father. So everyone is together. But as capitalism has us living in these little silos where it's just you in an apartment with your husband and a child, it can be very, very extremely isolating, where you don't even get an hour to hand over the baby to some other loving adult so that you can take a breather. So, and I think the book was an interrogation of, because in Ayanga's case, she keeps asking for help and seeking for help from her husband. And patriarchy doesn't teach men to come into fatherhood in that way. It teaches men to come into fatherhood financially, materially, supporting, but not waking up at 2 a.m. for a feed. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes women need that, need somebody to, like, and then when we say, no, I'm not on paternity leave, I still have to get up in the morning to go to work, to like get the bread and bacon or whatever it is. But the woman needs break during the night. And I think where it gets darkest, when it's just you and a child who's vulnerable, who's little, who can be harmed if things go awry. So I think like social isolation is terrible during new motherhood.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that she also struggled a lot with was like the shame of needing help, and what you're speaking about now, like self-sufficiency, which is a thing that we are adopting now, and individualism, that like when you are drowning and struggling, you're scared to ask for help because there's a lot of shame to it. And we even speaking about community, but the little women that she had around were also failing her, because, you know, in that part where she's speaking about going to a latching expert, I also didn't know, by the way, that like you can struggle to latch a baby. To get a baby to breastfeed can be a literally painful experience and can damage like the nipples or your breasts. And the women around her were like, why are you doing white people things, you know? But that is, so I feel like her community, they also failed her.
Yes, they did. And also, like, I feel like Ayanga was stubborn because she wanted help from a source that was her husband. When help was offered by Rose, you know, like her mother-in-law initially, she rejected it because in her mind, she was sold on the idea of the nuclear family. And while the nuclear family can be a source of great comfort, like for the extended family, sometimes it's insufficient, it's not enough. Like sometimes you need grandparents in the yard who are going to take over. And I think capitalism has us, like, for example, like there are some communities, even here in South Africa, where you can have 3 generations within the same household. But now it's seen as a failure. Like as soon as you graduate, when are you moving out? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's just a way that capitalism creates consumers out of all of us. Because now you need an extra bed, and you need an extra kettle, and you need an extra apartment, and you need and the support, like, and yes, you can get all those material things, but what is lost is the familial support that is often very needed at that time.
Yeah, and also another thing that is not really discussed a lot is the fact that married women are single married mothers. Like a lot, yeah, and
Personal experience, yes.
yeah, a lot of women are single married mothers, and it's hard for them to speak up about it because it's the ultimate reward. Being married is like you have attained the ultimate, you know, patriarchal goal to have a husband. That's the best time for you to have children. That's, you know, that's like Ayanga's life is the ideal life from the outside. But someone who had a child out of wedlock at home is in a better position.
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah. And I don't know, does anyone have any experience of being a single married mother or knowing a single married mother?
I have an experience. I have an experience. I got married very early. I was 22 when I got married. And I think his idea of what fatherhood and husbandhood was very different from mine. And that's partly my fault because I fell pregnant 19 weeks after meeting him. So I didn't know him. When we fell pregnant and we decided on getting married, we hadn't really interrogated the idea of like, what does family life look like to you, you know? So it was never discussed. So once we were in the marriage, there were all these conflicts because I expected just as much as I leave the house to go earn money and come back, I don't expect him to be relaxing and chillaxing the afternoons when I'm doing all the admin of keeping 4 people alive, 5 people including him. So like lots of married women, and of course there's a veil of shame, like you cannot even say that you're struggling in that way. And I think sometimes, I was discussing with a colleague when I still taught that sometimes like we as women are at fault. Because think about the choice. We are the primary toy buyer for our babies from babyhood, right? Like we will always buy trucks and guns and whatever for our little boys. That doesn't teach, a truck and a gun won't help when there's a baby. Do you know what I mean? So instead of, like, even if you do give a boy child a stuffy toy, by the time he's 3, you want to yank that away because it's too girly to be caring for another. Like, we're partly at fault. And I think we need to reimagine what family looks like. Because women are in the workplace, men should start working in the home as well. Yeah.
Okay, there's a question at the back.
Hi,
Hello.
my name's Rebecca. So I am a mom of a 3.5-year-old and a almost 2-year-old. So you can do
Yes.
the maths.
Yes, yes.
What?
Irish twins.
Almost, yes, yeah. And when I came out of maternity leave with my first child, I almost, when I went back into work, I didn't have my child with me, and I walked around and I was like, I felt like I was in the Truman Show. I don't know if you've ever watched that
Yes,
show.
yes, yes.
Because I was like, how are people walking around and not like having psychotic breakdowns or like screaming in the streets, having gone through what I just went through? It was so weird. And I was like, I got this very weird experience of like the masking, as like everyone is doing this masking. And vast majority of people with young children haven't slept properly. Or they've
Yes.
woken up at 4 or whatever. And I was just like, how are more people not just like crying or like losing their minds and acting professional at work? I was, yeah, it was next level. I really thought like something strange was happening in the world. But yeah, I think one of the biggest shocks for me of motherhood was my husband and I both have a very deep understanding, I would say, both like a feminist understanding of co-parenting and very
yes.
intentionally so. So, he would almost, this sounds weird, I'm not using the right language maybe, but like at times, my daughter was crying while she was with him and he was trying to put her to sleep, and he would say like, please just let me learn how to soothe my child, like, and not let me in the room. And he would fight for that right, because otherwise, as a mom, you've got this like weird, the hormones in you are also like pulling you into, asking you to intervene.
Yes, yes.
So it helps to understand that you do have to accept multiple caregivers in your child's life. Because I also work
Absolutely.
full time, and part of my community is the caregivers I've chosen for my children at their school. But I was shocked at how, and my husband stayed at home with my daughter for 6 months after I finished my maternity leave. And yet still, guys, it was not equal parenting. And I was shocked. I was like, but we did everything right. We did everything right in terms of, and you can't share the load. So co-parenting isn't equal parenting. And it blew my mind that it's not really possible.
And
It's
I
so
think
interesting.
it's important, the point that you're making, that women have to allow for space for men to figure it out, right? So once you hand over your brand new baby to a man and it's still crying, the instinct is to grab it back and for you to soothe the baby. But I think women have to be strong in that they let the men figure out their way of soothing the baby, because sometimes we burden our own selves by not accepting help, by seeing a parent doing things differently from us as wrong. It's like sometimes men will tire babies out, play with them, rough, tumble, whatever it is. But that helps because then the baby falls asleep. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you'll be so protective and be like, oh, be gentle, she's new, whatever. So I think it's important that like even women allow the men to figure out how to be fathers.
I'm gonna spoil it for those of you who haven't read it. Ayanga killed her baby because she was battling postpartum depression, which was actually postnatal psychosis. Do you maybe want to speak? Like, I'd like all of us to speak about, because we speak about postpartum depression as like, oh, it goes away after like 6, after 6 weeks you'll be fine, you'll find your rhythm. But what happens when you don't find your rhythm, and how can we support mothers? What can we do?
Yeah, I think postnatal psychosis is like postnatal depression, but on steroids. It's the worst aspect of it. And a doctor friend of mine, I don't know if you guys know about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, where a baby is put into a cot and then she says that she fears that some of those cases, not all, some of those cases is just a mother having a bad night. You know, and it's not like something that you can freely talk about as a parent, that in a moment of weakness or tiredness or lack of sleep, people die sooner, and this is scientific, people die sooner from lack of sleep than they do from lack of water. So sleep is really vital to the human experience. So if you've been having 90 days where you're getting minimal sleep, where lots is demanded from your actual physical body, when you are giving nutrition to someone else and you're not getting help, whatever it is. So for me, the psychosis, also, Ayanga's psychosis almost seemed inevitable because she was not coping and she was not getting the help that she needed.
Yeah, and it just made me think, what you just mentioned now, how many mothers find themselves in a situation where they've killed their babies, whether it's intentional, accidental, maybe a child could be screaming and you throw them to a wall because you can't handle it, and they die.
On a lesser, grim, because I think I went a bit too far with that, on a lesser grim, there have been instances, young women who've been hired, to be au pairs or whatever it is, where they shake the baby, because it is frustrating. You'd have to not be human to not find the cry of a baby distressing to you. Even though the baby is distressed themselves, it is distressing to the person who has to listen to that. So there's shaken baby syndrome or whatever it is. And I want us to have a conversation about how hard motherhood is. It is a beautiful experience. Let me tell you something a little bit personal about myself. I've been a depressive since I was 12 years old. That's when I had my first suicide attempt. And how I coped with the constant need, the suicidal ideation, I've had it, I still have it now, I'm almost 50, is by having something or someone to take care of, right? So I had my babies to keep me alive, and I know people will be judge me, why would you have children to keep you alive? I'm I'm giving them life, they must give me life. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's a fair exchange. So I wanted to go to the opposite of that. While my children have given me reason to stay alive, because whenever I'd felt the most suicidal, because sometimes suicide can make you feel like your own personal life is like a building on fire. You might feel I really actually don't want to do this. Because my particular depression is not because of trauma. I was a very doted upon, loved daughter. I can say without fear of contradiction that I was my mother's favorite child. She, not him. She doted upon me. But yet I had this depression. So even when I attempted my first suicide at 12, I felt admitting to this would be ingratitude towards my mother who'd given so much. So I kept it silent, I kept it to myself. And when I figured out that looking after something outside of myself, when I had my first child at 22, then depression can feel like a blindness to joy. It's not like I didn't have all these things that were meant to be making me joyful. I had a job that I really, really enjoyed, that I find fulfillment in. I had children I adored. I had community. I had my tribe. But sometimes, at the worst parts, I'd be blind to it. I'd be this doesn't feel right. Because what people fail to understand about mental health is that depression has an actual physical component. There's a biochemistry there. So it is very useless for people to tell you to pull yourself together. You're not curtains. It's not gonna it's not gonna help anyone. I get so angry, And what helped me, and only when I was 29, when I had my daughter, and there was an inability to bond, and I thought, how I'm feeling, the things I'm saying to myself are not normal. And I read an article, I think in Cosmo magazine, that listed the signs of depression, and I could tick every single one. So when I went to the doctor, I was empowered. I was this is what I feel like, it is not normal, give me meds. give him a pill to pop. And he did. And he did. And like fluoxetine has been keeping me alive since then. So I think it is important to realize that the human mind is not sacrosanct. Things can go wrong there as much as like in the lungs. I mean, people with asthma, for example, you don't tell them, oh my God, you're so ungrateful, there's so much air around, just breathe. But with people who are depressed, we're always told to just get on with it. You know, it's like, and I'm like, I need a pill. Like, Pop, give me a pill. So I think this book I wrote for 12-year-old me who didn't have the language. I grew up in the township. I didn't have the language. I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, despite having all the access to joy that I had. I didn't understand why I was blind to it. So when I finally got help, it was like a light had been switched on. I could function like as a normal human being. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any closing thoughts on? Okay, yeah. Are there any closing thoughts on the Book of Ayanga? Because we're going to move on to the Book of Hope now. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just going to stand so I can see you. Michelle, I just wanted to ask you, I can't remember Ayanga's partner's name. Sizwe.
Sizwe, yes.
Sizwe.
Yes.
So in the end, sorry to spoil, but in the end, he kind of helps her to cover up the death of the baby. And I'm just wondering, do you think he was doing that as a final act of showing up for her, or was it because he knew that he was guilty on some level?
I think a bit of both. I mean, Sizwe must know how he failed her, how she rang the alarm and needed help and he just didn't show up. I mean, in the book, he spends one night with the baby and immediately calls his mother. He finds it distressing, something she'd been dealing with for weeks and weeks. He finds it so distressing that he calls like the troops, whereas he didn't do the same for her. And I think it's part of that, him showing up for her. And also, I don't know, people don't want to be associated with mental illness or something as grimy as the murder of an infant. And I think for him, in order for him to go on with his life, to meet a different woman, to try fatherhood again, he needed to pretend that the experiment, which was his first marriage, didn't go as wrong as it did.
Testing, okay. More of a comment than a question. I just want to thank you for the Book of Ayanga. I think it's very validating because motherhood hardly ever gets any bad press. I think it's validating for the mothers who struggle and also validating for the younger women who are shamed for knowing that they don't want to be mothers. Women who fear that this will definitely be my experience. Because sort of like, what do you mean you have to have a child? Like, it's almost expected of women. So I think Ayanda's experience is an important one to share. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Cool. So, Michelle, will you please go to page 6 and...
6.
Yeah, page 6.
Okay.
So we're moving on to the Book of Hope now.
Okay.
Just read from the stars and then where the stars end, then.
Oh, this
Yeah,
one
with
from
the-
this, yes,
yeah.
until the stars, okay.
Until the stars, so don't read the other highlighted.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
won't, all
yeah.
right. Months ago, my mom stopped shouting at me to get up, to pull my weight, to look for a job. She stopped with her advice, orders, and instructions. She no longer told me, you need to send your CV around, Hope. Tell friends who have job that you're desperately looking. Hope, do not focus on the field you studied. Broaden your search. You have to start somewhere. Apply until they see you. Apply daily. Remove all those pride pictures from your social media. Those in power are conservative. Not everyone is an ally. You cannot sleep all day, Hope. No company is going to politely knock on your door and rouse you from your daytime naps and offer you a job. Gain experience in whatever field, my child. Apply for a retail job. Your cousin knows the manager of a clothing shop. I don't feel that you pray enough for a job. Come to church with me. we must both pray without ceasing. I cannot feed, clothe, and shelter you all my life while you stubbornly remain a child. At this point, Lihle will work before you do. Maybe God disapproves of who you are, so he cannot condone your orientation by financing your lifestyle. That last utterance gutted me. The pain upon hearing it was physical.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read that, I was like, I understand why Hope wants to kill herself. Because imagine being unemployed on its own is depressing. Being an unemployed black graduate is depressing. And if you don't have community, it shatters you even more. So her having to battle unemployment and homophobia from her mother was just like, yeah, I understood.
Yes, yes. Like, as someone who's queer, and I know that, like, when people are in good spirits with you, when people like you, I mean, it'll never come up, the fact that you're queer, until you do something that displeases them. Then it's the first slur, you know? So it happens even in families. I came into my sexuality very late in life. I was 33 when I kissed a woman on a women's weekend away. And
What are they for?
I was 33 and married.
Michelle!
And this stays between us. No, I'm telling you something more scandalous. Please, 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 not a word, not a peep out of this room. My ex-husband was extremely possessive, extremely possessive in an unnatural way. Like, he treated me as if, like, I taught, right? I was a school teacher. He would say to me, I had a curfew until I was 39. A 6 p.m. curfew. He would tell me, you finish work at 2, you have 4 hours to go about your errands, but at 6, I want you home. So that was my life. The only reason he allowed me to go to the women's weekend getaway was because it was organized by his cousins and their wives. So one of their wives kissed me, and when that happened, my sexuality orbited a different planet. I knew that I would always seek the sexual company of women. I was like, this is it. I knew that, like, for me, heterosexuality was something I did because, I mean, it's Ken and Barbie, Adam and Eve. It's cultural, right, to find a man when you're a woman. But then when I kissed that woman, I was like, wait. It felt like a lion who'd been fed carrots and lettuce all his life was finally given meat. I was ravenous. So because I was so grown when I came into my sexuality, I wasn't even apologetic about it. Like, he is the first person I told when I came back, because I felt like I owed him the truth, and I knew that I would always seek out women to kiss. So I think, like, queerness comes into, like, even from family. Family will be okay with you until you do something that's displeasing to them, and then, oh, you, like, it's so boring. Like, and people who come around and say, oh, I don't like lesbians. I'm sorry, what lesbian made you think they like you? Like, relax yourself. Chill.
Yeah, you I definitely agree with that people will be accepting of homosexuality until you do something wrong. And there's this misconception on social media that, like, oh, gay people are so rich, but it's because, like, they accept them because they're rich. Like, oh, you're rich, so we'll accept you. Yeah, so now there's, like, this whole notion that, like, oh no, all gay people are rich, but it's not the truth. There are a lot of, like,
But some gay people are rich, to be fair.
Some are.
I think, like, not me, because I had 4 children. Never me. But you know that dinky thing, double income, no kids. So obviously, if you have no one to put through school and you have a double income, chances are you'll have more material resources than a traditional.
Yeah. But then you get your hope, who is at home and she's unemployed and
she
she's
was
gay
going
and
through it.
yeah. So I'd like us to speak about that, like being unemployed, being queer, and what that does to your self-concept, like sense of self. Sense of self. See, there's a mic.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
So, yeah, my name is Blue. I'm Hope, and Hope is me. I've never related so much to a person, but my thing is, as you said, you saw something on social media, someone was saying, I know I'm going to be rich because I'm gay. I also saw that, and I think the truth behind it is that you need to work 10 times harder than the normal heterosexual world, because you'll always be identified as that lesbian girl in the office who does this and that and that. But my question is, I wanted to know that, going back to Hope, I wanted to know that how do you maneuver going through being unemployed and homosexual and being in the same alignment with someone that is employed and homosexual, and you are in the same household and you can see that they are actually being treated on a higher standard level because they have a job. Yes, so like, how do you deal with that as a person?
I mean, like, being homosexual alone is othering. It is othering. I mean, because you're different. Like, there's a case in the United States now where they're trying to reverse everything. All the progress that's been made the past 50 years, there's an active. I mean, it's like their Department of Defense now is called the Department of War. Can you imagine? It's called like, anyway. So it is very tough, like, to be queer and unemployed in a household where your homosexuality is going to be seen as, in some families, as antichrist, that you're doing something that goes against the teaching of the Bible. And some people will ignore the parts of the Bible. The Bible says a lot of things to a lot of people, right? It's like, and I feel like these are people who are invested in hate. Because, I mean, the Bible says you can keep slaves, right? So why don't you grabbing darkies off the streets and having them sweep your house for free? But you find that, no, I'm going to quote Leviticus in order to put, and we have to understand it, even though the Bible is supposed to be inspired by God, it was written by men with their own prejudices, with their own bigotry, with their own. So we can't use that. Like, we have to look at, are you humanist? Like, if I'm queer and I am in a consenting relationship with somebody who's queer, who am I harming? And if there's no one, then stay the fuck out of my bedroom. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it is very tough, like, I think, living in Cyril's economy, because, like, we're not seen as people in these days, whatever. We're seen as consumers. And if you can't consume, if you don't have the capital to consume, then your otherness is doubled. So I don't even have answers for you. So I'm like, yeah, I really don't.
Yeah. And so for context, again, also to spoil it, Hope planned to kill herself, and the way in which she was going to do it is to, like, go to a freeway and jump in front of a truck. So she does that, but then the truck swerves, and then it's a Hyundai that bumps into her, and the person driving it is a butch, masculine presenting lesbian. Her name is Bonga, and they form a friendship, and Bonga makes it her mission to save Hope.
Yes.
But then I was like, what are the lines between someone having a savior complex and someone actually being a support system? And when you are depressed, what do you need? Because she doesn't really have community. She doesn't have anyone to be there. But Bonga also at first doesn't, like, really get it, and she's just trying to save her. So is that better? I guess that's better than having no one. I don't know. That's, like, as a depressed person, what do you need, you know, when you're going through depression at that time and you have a Bonga in your life?
And I think, like, I'm speaking about myself as a depressed person. My first job as a depressed person is to stay alive. like I make it my mission to stay alive, to see another day. Like, I remember in 2023, I've been depressed since I was 12. Like, my brain doesn't produce enough serotonin, so it has to be added. But with medicine, you become immune to it, right? After a while, after years and years of taking fluoxetine, it just wasn't working the same, right? And how my depression shows up is executive dysfunction. Everything becomes hard. Like, everything becomes hard. Like, everything is a mammoth task. All your molehills turn into mountains. And I feel like there's been such amazing advances in science. In fact, when we're dealing with the mind, I remember at my most suicidal in 2023, I didn't even care anymore that I had children, little children to look after. I was like, the pain is too much. They'll just have to cope without me. But then always there's a small part of you that still wants to live. So I remember researching about what other medication besides the SSRIs that deal with depression, and I read about ketamine. And like ketamine was very new, it still is, like ketamine infusions, right? And the people who had taken it in the United States had reported that it had like a Lazarus effect on their minds. And at that time, like, I mean, I was a struggling artist, I still am. Like, I didn't have a cent to my name, and the treatment was 15,000. But what I always have had is how to weave the alphabet together. So I wrote an email to the clinic that offers ketamine infusions, and the next day, they agreed to give me free ketamine, and it was like a light being switched off, and it was immediate. Whereas with fluoxetine, you have to take it for 6 weeks to start to see an improvement. But with ketamine, and I'm saying this to say this in case there's anyone that you know that you are who's depressed, it was immediate. I went to that clinic wanting to off myself. I came out, I'm like, okay, I have to write a book. I wrote a book, finished it, got published. I was just like a human being functioning. So like, we all see the world not through our eyes, but through our minds. So if your mind is ailing, it affects every aspect of your life. So I really believe in treatment, not like, and obviously if serotonin is an issue, you can see a therapist for 20 years. No amount of talking will sort that out. Like, you wouldn't say to somebody with cancer, no, just talk about it. Let's talk about your cancer cells in your boobs until you're okay. Like, you give them chemotherapy. And I think it's time that we saw the mind as having a physiology, that when people are depressed, whatever, whereas support is important, whatever it is, but medication is important. That's not a word I know. Like, so that's important.
Okay, we have a hand in the audience.
Thanks. I've only read the first book, The Book of Hope. And I started reading your book 2 days ago, and I actually just couldn't stop it. So I was like really impressed with the writing. And there's actually a question about the writing, because when I read the first paragraph, I was really shocked that I was reading about someone who wanted to kill himself in the first paragraph of the book. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And what amazed me about your writing is that I just carried on reading. You just really drew me in. And I said to someone, oh, the book is like such an easy read. And then they looked at me shockingly because of the content matter. But I wanted to ask you just, how do you write so, how do you keep me as a reader reading you even though you're writing about such hard content?
I always feel like literature should be accessible, right? It's like, I had to sign a book yesterday, and someone had told me, the person who had asked me to sign my book had said that they suffer from depression, and I had to spell, like, may your nervous system always be regulated. And I couldn't spell regulated. I had to ask the person. So I always feel like literature should be accessible first off, right? Before you impress me with how poetic you are, like, let me hear you. So I want a 12-year-old to be able to read this and get it, and a grown-up to be able to. And how I engage is like, write in first person so that you don't feel like it's a story, you feel like it's happening to you. Like, I had to question, I was already on ketamine when I was writing this book. I had to keep reminding myself, Michelle, you're not depressed. This is Hope's story, this is not you. So, like, you have to inhabit the lives of the person that you're writing about. Yes.
Okay, yeah, there's a hand at the back.
Is it me or you? Okay. You
Hi,
can-
Michelle.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Your voice carries, yes.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for this book. It's absolutely important. What I'd like to find out from you as a writer, to what extent is this book from personal experience? Is it somewhat autobiographical? All of the stories, to what extent did you reach within yourself? What parts of yourself did you share within all of these stories?
Okay, somewhat, right? You write what you know. So I'm a depressive, so that's one thing, right? Like I've been living and surviving my mental illness. But in terms of their day-to-day, everyday stories, they're different. And I couldn't agree. Initially, I had meant to write just Hope's story, but I didn't want to, I needed for the book to be polyphonic, for people to see the various ways they can come into depression, that is not just one way. So that like, if little children, whatever, young people are taking this book to their parents, like, this is how I feel, the parent doesn't say, but you have a job. Do you know what I mean? It's like Hope doesn't have a job, that's why you're depressed, because you have a job, you shouldn't be depressed. So I needed the book to be polyphonic. It's autobiographical in fact, because I have depression, but that's where the similarities end. Yeah.
And there was a hand at the very back, yeah.
Yes. Hello. Hi. Oh, it was working just fine just now. Okay, cool. It was literally working just fine just now. Oh, okay, cool. Here we go. I mean, asking a question right now, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I have not read the books yet, but I was so captivated by the conversation, and I will be reading those books. The question that I had is more like through the conversation and what Blue or something mentioned earlier, is as a person who's also in the house with someone who might be a Hope, you know, what does that look like in terms of support, in terms of showing up, in terms of, you know, also allowing them to, I guess, wade through whatever might be happening, and is there limits, you know? And I'm saying this as a real life experience. I'm actually in the house right now with my partner, and it's been a couple of years even. I mean, a graduate, as you mentioned, very, very like intelligent, but has been struggling even with like pursuing law and all of those things. So I almost felt myself in the first year, I was like, okay, this is cool. It was not a thing at all, to be honest. As a freelance artist myself, I was like, okay, I mean, we're all rapusha, you know? But eventually it got to a point where I think maybe in the past year, and I also went the corporate route, etc. I was like, okay, I think there's a incongruency here where it's like I'm almost pushing ahead or forging ahead in my life, and now I'm seeing this person who's been supporting me, but at the same time you can't ignore the fact that we're now in different like spaces, but the love and all of that is still there. So I don't know if there's a question there, but I'm almost trying to think or ask and maybe implore from the people here and yourselves, what does one do in a situation like that? Yeah.
I think you offer support. And if you start to feel like you might be harming them, like they're already down, if you start seeing that you are raising your foot in order to kick someone who's already down, then walk away. Because it's very hard, like economics are very hard. Like money is endemic. It controls every aspect of our lives. If you start to feel like you're talking down on them, like you're making them feel like they're not trying hard enough, then the kindest thing to do would be to walk away before you start kicking them, because they're already down. Because they already speak to themselves really unkindly. They don't need an added voice.
I think to kind of add to that, my question or my surprise was when Ubonga is offering such a huge amount of help to to Hope, and you have Hope living at home, and her mother had that. There was that going on that you read, and I was a bit surprised that Hope didn't jump at that opportunity. Here's someone who is queer, who will understand you and will support you and help you to get back on your feet, and then she doesn't accept that help. Yeah, I think that's my comment.
Yes, I think though the thing about depression is that the negative self-talk is so endemic, because I mean we can escape. Let's say you have a mother-in-law who's a deckbag, who talks smack. You can escape her by being away from her physically. But if you're depressed and you have negative self-talk, like, you can't escape your own head. And I think when people speak unkindly about themselves or to themselves, when they hear kind words from other people, their immediate reaction is to reject that, because it's not something that they are familiar with. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, unfortunately we are out of time, and it feels like an injustice because there's just so much to speak about, and we didn't even have time to get to the book of Zethu, but I felt like these two stories were very important, and I knew we were not going to have enough time to get to Zethu, but I encourage all of you to read it. I mean, we have a group chat. You can send your chats in the group chat, and also I'm going to stay by the door. If you would like to join the Feminist Book Club, please come to me. And if you're already in the Feminist Book Club, I just want to show you guys what we're going to be reading next, and it is Mother Mary Comes to Me. I will post this as well in the group, and see you next month, end of this month. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming. Michelle will also be around.